Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to this press conference organized by the War Resisters Support Campaign. And I'd now like to introduce our final speaker, Gloria Nafziger, who is the Refugee Coordinator for Amnesty International.
Good afternoon. Amnesty International opposes the forcible return of Corey Glass to the United States, where we believe he faces a serious risk of imprisonment for his conscientiously held beliefs. Amnesty International believes Mr. Glass to have a genuine conscientious objection to serving as a combatant in the U.S. forces in Iraq, and we would consider him to be a prisoner of conscience if he were to be imprisoned upon his return to the United States. Some U.S. military personnel who have refused to deploy to Iraq or Afghanistan due to their conscientious objection to the U.S. policy and practice in the war on terror have been imprisoned solely for their beliefs. Amnesty International has considered some of these people to be prisoners of conscience. Some of these conscientious objectors have been court-martialed and sentenced despite pending applications for their conscientious objector status. Others were imprisoned after their applications were turned down on the basis that they were objecting to particular wars rather than to war in general. Amnesty International has declared a number of conscientious objectors in the United States to be prisoners of conscience. They include Camilo Mejia, who was sentenced to 1 year imprisonment for his objections to the war in Iraq, and Abdullah Webster, who refused to participate in the same war due to his religious beliefs. Another, Kevin Benderman, was sentenced to 15 months imprisonment after he refused to redeploy to Iraq because of the scenes of devastation that he witnessed there. Augustin Aguayo was sentenced to 8 months imprisonment for his refusal to participate in the war in Iraq. All 4 of these have since been released. Amnesty International is of the view that the right to refuse to perform military service for reasons of conscience is inherent in the notion of freedom of thought, conscience, and religion as recognized in Article 18 of the Universal Declaration for Human Rights and Article 18 of the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights. Amnesty International considers a conscientious objector to be any person who, for reasons of conscience or profound conviction, refuses to either perform any form of service in the armed forces or applies for non-combatant status. This can include the refusal to participate in a war because one disagrees with its aims or the manner in which the war is being waged, even if one does not oppose to taking part in all wars. Whenever such a person is detained or imprisoned solely for these beliefs, Amnesty International considers that person to be a prisoner of conscience. Amnesty also considers conscientious objectors to be prisoners of conscience if they are imprisoned as a consequence of leaving the armed forces without authorization for reasons of conscience, if because of those reasons they have taken reasonable steps to secure their release from military obligations. Following this, Amnesty International opposes the forcible return of Mr. Glass to the United States, where we believe he faces a serious risk of imprisonment due to his conscientiously held beliefs.
Thank you very much.